You can't just say, "Oh, we need music in this episode." Backstreet Boys. Hello, hello, hello. Fun fact, it's time to sit down and put in those earbuds so as not to disturb the neighbors, because this is Off Book, a podcast about Broadway, movies, TV shows, and so many other nerdy things. I am Marc Stoufer III.
And I'm Hailey Briggs. Today's episode, taking place in our secondary studio because our normal one isn't in great condition. It's all about musical episodes and what makes them work well. So obviously, to start things off, we all know Glee is a thing, right? Have you seen
Yes.
Glee?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that is the most ridiculous show I've ever seen.
Basically.
I cannot imagine if it was still running today. Like, it ran from 2009 for 6 seasons. So like 2012, 2013?
Something like that. Math.
Like, honestly, first off, 2015.
That is recent.
Yeah. So like, obviously we all know Glee because like everybody likes to make funny jokes about Glee because the episodes are absolutely ridiculous, except for the one episode that they dedicated to Corey. I sobbed my eyes out when I watched that one. Couldn't even make it past the first song.
Oh no.
Because this is kind of a spoiler, but one of the main characters on the show actually died in real life, and so they did like a tribute episode for him where it kind of just got the entire cast together in their little choir room and just sung songs. And it's really sad, but it's like a good way. But yeah, this show is very I give it like a 6 out of 10. Like, if you're looking to just like have background noise, or if like you want to watch ridiculousness, watch that show because that's all it is.
That's high praise. If you want background noise, this will suffice.
Like, I know, and I'm picky about my background noise stuff. So basically, if you don't know what Glee is, it's there's a teacher who is Will Schuester. So that's a joke too, that he's kind of a creep, but in the show he's really not. I don't know where that joke came from, but and so he wants to make up a Glee club because back when he was at McKinley High, there was a Glee club. And so there's like all these casts, like all these people that are like, oh, if you do this, like you're going to be a nerd. Like, everyone's known for not liking the Glee club. And so it's like high schoolers going into like against the odds. So like there's like Rachel Berry, who's like a perfectionist. Like, she needs to like win at everything, and she's really egotistical. There's obviously the stereotypical cheerleaders, the football players. Like, their music is good. Like, the first couple seasons, it's actually like pretty enjoyable, and then it just gets worse and worse.
Nice. I think the thing with Glee is that the suspension of disbelief is so high because nothing feels at all realistic about it. It's just full on musical numbers all the time.
Yeah. Like, and there's like in the first season alone, like I guarantee you there's going to be at least like 200. Let me see.
There's so many. They're all this big production that, it's the stereotypical, let's all break into song.
There's 131 musical performances for the first season.
Oh dear.
For the first season alone.
And there were 6 seasons? That's a lot.
That's insane. And they do like a wide range of things. So like they did Journey, Celine Dion, they did Salt and Pepper. They did the ones from Greece, Amy Winehouse. Like they do a wide range of songs. So in musical theater, they did Cabaret in the first season. So it's like it's not bad. It's just interesting.
Yeah. And I think along those lines, there's a TV show that I don't know if you've heard about, called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. That has,
that's the one where she like gets hit on the head or something, and all of a sudden she just sees people dancing and singing and breaking out in the song in the middle of the street.
Yeah. So she's in an MRI machine doing an earthquake, and then she can hear people's innermost emotions as songs, and they're all licensed songs, likely. So there's some Queen, there's some 90s boy band, there's some musical theater songs. They sing Hello Dolly. There's just so many genres, but I think the biggest difference between that show and Glee is that these musical numbers actually feel grounded. It they're not all these big productions. They're like one person songs that feels very realistic because these are just extensions of the emotions. And they are productions. I mean, there's full choreography for them, but they're done in a way that makes it feel genuine. And like you're seeing their inner emotions and not, let's all break into dance in these giant courtyard, And I think that's.
And it's like on Glee, all of a sudden they're like in a situation, all of a sudden, bam, they're on the stage of the auditorium. And I'm like,
right.
Did you just teleport? Like,
yeah.
Or they're like, I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, it just doesn't feel real. Like, if this show was categorized as fiction or nonfiction, definitely would go in like the fantasy category in the corner. Like, right. That's how far outreach it is.
Yeah. And I think that touch of realism can go a long way in making it a more enjoyable experience because, when you're telling a realistic story, and so by keeping that thread of realism throughout the whole thing, through the musical numbers, I think it's creating these characters that you can feel more attached to because they're expressing themselves in ways that don't take you out of the story. It was something like Glee being taken out of the story every 5 minutes to hear this big production, which sounds cool and is great as a YouTube video, but is a very disorienting experience emotionally when you're watching the full show.
But yeah, another one that is like kind of Glee-ish in my opinion, even though I've barely seen it, is High School Musical, the series.
Oh yeah.
Like it just doesn't like feel real, especially with Olivia Rodrigo and Joshua Bassett drama now.
Oh yeah. It does feel very forced when they're singing musical numbers, which the original High School Musical did too. There was no reason for them to be singing. It didn't feel necessary, but it's fun.
To be honest, you know what's going around on TikTok right now? I don't know if you have TikTok, but
I do not. I do not need to be in that situation.
In the second High School Musical movie, they're working at a resort, and Troy goes to write something, and he flips it over, and it's readable.
Oh no!
TikTok's going around making fun of it. It's so funny. Even with like the high school, like I know High School Musical isn't really a show. It was supposed to. I think it was supposed to be a show at one point, but then they decided to make it into movies. Like it just doesn't. It's so like. Even nowadays, it's so stereotypical with High School Musical, the musical, the series. Try saying that 3 times fast.
No.
It just doesn't feel realistic, which is my kind of issue with musical episodes.
And I think there is a way to do that in a way that makes it feel like it's heightened reality. But I think you can very easily lose that and make it feel like, oh, this is show tunes and theater. And, theater not in the actual way of good theater, more in the way of...
This is what theater kids are like. Like, no.
Right. Yeah.
Glee Club that's not even close. Like Glee, that's not how high school works. That's not what theater kids are like. I promise you.
Most of us do not break into song. I mean, we do, but it's not full choreographed numbers. It's just belting Jeremy Jordan very poorly and just gushing about how talented he is. That happened today. And that happened today, like 2 hours ago.
Yeah. I quite literally. Okay, so there's this one. I know you've probably never seen it, Grey's Anatomy. It's about like all these doctors at a hospital, and at one point, one of the doctors gets in a very bad car accident, and she's like a ghost, and like watching herself, basically, almost. She's kind of like, oh, have you seen that movie? What's that movie called? If I Stay.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it though.
Where she like comes out of her body and she has to decide whether she wants to die or she wants to keep living. That's basically what the doctor was doing, but it was a musical episode.
Oh. Okay then.
And like they sung Chasing Cars, they sung various other songs, and people absolutely despised it.
Yeah.
Like it's quoted as one of the worst episodes of Grey's Anatomy ever produced, and they are on their 18th 19th season.
Nice.
So I guess they can go either way. I guess it depends, because I didn't mind the episode, but also like there's avid people who are like, oh my God, I absolutely love Glee, and I'm sitting here making fun of it.
Right.
But yeah, it's just weird.
Those one-time episodes are really fascinating to me because the Flash did an episode like that. And you think that the Flash couldn't make it work, but it kind of works. I mean, most of the cast was on Glee or was on Broadway. And they have Jeremy Jordan in the cast of that show. And so they actually managed to pull off this thing that worked at this plot line. These shows that aren't musical shows trying to justify why they're musicals. I mean, they got in a car crash, or there was like this superhuman, there's a curse. It never makes any sense. But, once you get through that.
No, it doesn't, because, have you seen Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about that too. Yeah.
Didn't they have a musical episode?
Yeah, and it was okay, but the setup part made no sense.
It was like they had like a curse or something that they just had to constantly sing.
Yeah, which is what?
Which is
Sure,
okay.
fine, whatever.
It kind of makes sense because okay, so if you haven't seen Once Upon a Time, it's basically like all these storybook characters are in this town, and then this lady comes in and she's like all of a sudden like the long lost princess or whatever or something, if I remember right.
She's the author of the stories too.
Author, yeah. Hey, wait, I haven't gotten that far. No, I'm just kidding.
It's like the first episode.
And so they like have to do like there's like Captain Hook. There's
who's the best,
quote unquote, the bad guy. Rumpelstiltskin, who's the actual bad guy.
Yes.
Even though he turns good for like 2 seconds.
It goes back and forth so often.
And then like the main character's mom is like Snow White and Prince Charming. Like it's extremely good. I liked it. I haven't watched like the last season.
Don't.
But they added Elsa in there for like a couple episodes.
Yeah.
So it kind of got progressively worse. But anyways, they had a musical episode. It was because of a curse, and it kind of made sense, but it kind of felt very off.
Yeah. It felt forced, but they came up with like a halfway decent reason to use it. It was like, okay, clever, but not clever enough to make me not think about the fact this is clearly a corporate decision that you backed up with story.
Oh, the musical episode was like the last season.
And it might have been the second to last season, because the second to last season was the last one where it had the full cast intact, because all of them left after that.
Oh, right.
Because the last season had like 2 of the main characters, and it was not good.
Yeah, it says Snow and Charming make a special wish that Emma will be protected, resulting in the kingdom bursting into song.
Oh, yes.
So like it's the typical.
But what's interesting about that episode is that that's one of the few musical episodes to actually have original music. They wrote music for that episode. So the Captain Hook song is all about trying to get revenge on the crocodile. And the song's actually referenced by name the Evil Queen and Snow White. And, the Wicked Witches song talks about how being wicked is great. And I think that the music quality is kind of subpar. I mean, the Captain Hook song is fantastic. The rest of them are all okay-ish. But I think that you can gain something by having those original songs, because it feels okay. I mean, if they're going to break into a song, it would be kind of like this.
It's because it's one of the episodes that's like Emma's origin story. So like this is back when they were still like in Oz Enchanted Forest. Like they're not actually in like the United States, quote unquote. Yeah, right. Is what I'm reading. And so like they obviously made a deal with Rumpelstiltskin, which you never do.
Never.
Or I wonder if this is like when they went, I'm going like off track, but is this when they go like all of a sudden they're back in their homeland and everything? I don't remember it.
Well, it was interesting because if I remember correctly, the curse happened on the people in the city.
Enchanted Forest, yeah.
Yeah, that made them go back into the Enchanted Forest. I think, or maybe it was one of those dual stories. I don't remember. No, it was a story being told simultaneously in both the city and the Enchanted Forest, but only the Enchanted Forest could sing.
We have to watch this now.
Yeah,
add that to our list.
Our giant watch list.
But yeah, I like obviously Disney. They like quote unquote some of their shows were musical.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hannah Montana sung a song every. She even had a song about the bones. Like. The bars weren't set very high back then.
True. And I was talking about the Flash musical episode earlier, and I think that's interesting because tonally, I think it's a very similar show to Once Upon a Time. And it doesn't make any sense that it would be a musical episode, but they went with entirely licensed music, but went fully, instead of just picking kind of whatever songs they wanted to, they leaned heavily into the idea of this was an old murder mystery movie. But it was also a musical, so it was like old Hollywood, and it was kind of like a Wizard of Oz thing where all of the characters were playing characters in this old Hollywood movie. There was a murder mystery, but also they were singing, and it was so bizarre, but it was a bizarre enough concept that it actually kind of made it all work. It felt very different from the rest of the season, but all of that it was different enough to make it actually work. And I think that all of those old songs really helped to make you feel like you belonged there. So it actually was probably better than it had it not had musical numbers in it, because it glued it more together. And I think that if a show can do that, it's going to be better off for it. But if it's just trying to cram songs in there to get the obligatory musical episode, it's going to fall flat,
Technically, The Office had a musical episode.
Did it? I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, from what I'm reading, because I kind of just looked it up. From what I'm reading, it's like centers around one of the characters being in a play.
The classic play within an episode. Love that. Very original. Good job.
Yeah, I don't think they're getting as popular. I think they were popular, like that, like musical episodes were definitely popular like 5 years ago, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very short-lived fad for the most part. There are some that still do it. There are current shows that do that. But in terms of the one-off musical episode, I think it's kind of run its course for the most part anyway.
I just I don't know. I feel like there's so many shows that could have a musical episode and would work.
Right. It's a really cool thing if you can find a way to do it correct. It's just making sure that you actually have a reason to do it and that you do it well, and not just, hey, let's add some Queen in this detective drama for no reason.
I know. Can you imagine if they did like Law and Order and
oh no,
all of a sudden just singing random songs, and I'm like, oh no.
Law and Order as sung by the Beatles.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah. And now a word from today's sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by the totally real Glee reunion. Well, a lot of shows will do a reunion special, and a lot of shows will do a musical episode. None of them do a musical reunion episode. Unfortunately, that wouldn't make a lot of sense, since every episode of Glee is a musical episode of Glee. So they're trying an anti-musical episode, where instead of songs, you'll get to hear 3-minute monologues. There will still be choreography.
I feel like, never mind. I'm glad that they don't try to do it with every single show, because again, if Law and Order SVU, that's a very serious topic.
Yes.
I feel like if they added like a song by Gwen Stefani or something, that'd be completely inappropriate.
Right. Yeah. It's a very specific tone of a show that is serious enough to make it feel grounded and not goofy, unless you're trying to go for that, but isn't so serious that it feels disrespectful to the source material, to the characters that are living these situations, to have them suddenly singing.
I just like Grey's Anatomy. I'm not sure why they did one. I kind of do, because the character's name was Calliope, which means music.
Right.
So she was the one that was dying. So I kind of get it, but I kind of don't.
Yeah. And I think you need to make sure that whatever songs you're picking them for a reason. It's not just here's some popular songs. It's the characters are singing a song for a reason. I mean, the whole adage in musical theater is that you talk until the emotions become too much, and then you start to sing, and then you start to dance. And so I think if you're going to do that, you need to put those characters through emotional situations, and those songs need to reflect that. It can't just be, random musical numbers. And so I think if you find a way to organically put those in there, I think it's going to...
There's this one episode of Glee where I think they're singing... Oh, was it? So one of the characters, one of the cheerleaders gets pregnant in high school, and so obviously she's freaking out on how to tell her parents. Right. And she has the guy who she thinks is the dad over for dinner. Or she knows that he's not the dad, but she's letting him believe that because she cheated. And she brings him over to have dinner with her parents, and he got advice to just tell them. And so he breaks out into song, and it can't, or it's I'm having your daughter's baby is the song or something.
I'm repeatedly ramming my head into my microphone. See, that's what you don't do. Don't do that. So any TV writers that are out there, just don't. Pro tip from Off-Book Podcast Incorporated.
Oh, it's You're Having My Baby. And he brings out a CD player, and he clicks it, and he breaks out into song in the middle of dinner.
No, that's not the correct way to do it.
I quite literally, that's the first season.
Oh no, that's how they start the show? Oh, how did they get 6 seasons of that? Glee is entertaining to some people, but I think that it's not a good roadmap for how to make a musical episode. I think it almost works because it's so ridiculous, but I think you can't really count on that because more often than not, and even sometimes in Glee, it's not going to work. So just make something that feels grounded and that is, emotionally fulfilling. Have characters do things. Don't have them do that.
And I know that there's this one episode about twerking. Like literally that's all the episode is about. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
Glee, y'all. Okay, in your reunion that we're pretending you have, please find a way to redeem yourselves.
But yeah, I think to have a good musical episode, you kind of have to like have it related.
Right.
It can't just be out of the blue somewhere. It has to be connected to a storyline. It's like you have to start building up to it like at least 2 episodes prior.
Right. And the music has to make sense for the characters in the situation.
Yeah. So like Once Upon a Time, you were saying it made sense.
Right. Yeah.
But like half of Glees don't.
Right. And that's the thing with musical TV shows is the entire thing has to be musically motivated. So it's hard to keep up that kind of those plot lines that make sense with music. You have to make sure that when you're building that out ahead of time to create these long-term plot lines to work and create these situations. You can't just say, "Oh, we need music in this episode." Backstreet Boys. That's all for this episode. Hopefully, eventually, we'll be back in our normal studio.
Next week, we'll be talking all about another kind of musical with the movie musical and how to do one right. Until then, I don't know. Go listen to some music or something.